Hello. In today's video I will show you how to replace cracked glass on Lumia 925. So if your glass is only cracked and screen works as in this case, you're good to do this repair. So I will start off with disassembling the whole phone, removing the back. I'm using this vacuum as it's much easier to pull off the back with the vacuum. And I'm using some plastic guitar picks in combination. So as you can see, it's not really that easy to remove the back of the phone, but I did it. So the next step is to power off the phone. First, I'm disconnecting the battery flat cable. I'm using T6 screwdriver to remove 3 screws that hold the metal shield. I'm now removing the metal shield that covers other flat cables. And it is glued in place, so I'm kind of wiggling it out and removing it. Now I'm disconnecting the bottom flat cable for the microphone. The next is the power and camera buttons. A screen flat cable is right below it. And there's flat cable for the USB charging port and the front facing camera flat cable. Now I'm using T5 screwdriver for the 2 bottom screws that hold the speaker in place, and also for the 2 top screws that hold the mainboard and some plastic antennas over it. I'm removing the plastic antennas and also removing this pigtail cable for the antenna. Now I'm using my plastic tool and trying to wiggle the mainboard out, and it is well seated in this frame and all these flat cables, so I gotta take care that no flat cables get damaged during this procedure. So if you're doing the same, mind the flat cables. So I'm trying from all angles to wiggle the mainboard out, and I finally managed to do it. The next is this metal piece that holds the charge connector in place, and the charge connector and 3.5mm is out, as well the power button, and basically all other buttons are also out. Now removing the speaker, and it flew just straight out from the frame. Okay, so the hardest part in disassembling this phone is removing the battery. Battery is so well adhered to the frame, and it gave me so much pain removing it, so I'm using this plastic and metal tool in combination with some alcohol. So I'm pouring just a little bit to soften the adhesive. You can also heat the display, but the display cools too soon, so I found the alcohol to be the best to remove the battery. Be careful, you don't want to overfill with the alcohol, just a little bit. And it's great that there are no flat cables below the battery, as no flat cables would survive this procedure. So take your time. Nokia did not intend this battery to be reused, but I somehow managed not to damage it. Just take your time and go small by small. So the next part is to remove the display assembly from the frame, and for this I'm using the heat that is directed at the screen, and I'm using my plastic guitar picks in combination with some alcohol going all around, because adhesive is only at the edges of the display. This fact makes it so much easier for removing, because the middle of the display is not adhered to the frame. Still, be very careful, because you do not want to damage the screen. You want to take it out and have it still in the working condition. So take your time, use enough heat, but don't use enough heat, but don't go over the 100 degrees on the display itself. I'm using 150 on my heat gun, but that transferred to about 100 degrees on the display itself. And also do not heat the same spot for too much, because you might get brown spots on your display. Now I'm just removing the old adhesive from the frame, and also small pieces of glass. Be very careful, as these small pieces of glass can really cut you, so be very careful. Yeah, make sure all of the corners are clean. When you put everything together, you want everything to be flat. And so now, when I have removed the screen, I want to try if it still works. So I'm connecting the motherboard, the power button and the battery, and I'm trying the display to see if it still works. And I was lucky, the display still works. I can see the phone turning on, and the touch screen works as well. So now, after I tested the display, I'm disconnecting everything again and putting a piece of scotch tape over the display glass. I'm doing this because I don't want my glass to shatter into smaller pieces, because I want as bigger piece together as I can, because I'm using the delamination machine. And here you can see this is the display separator. It has a heat plate on the top where you put your phone. You can set the temperature very precisely. I'm setting it to 100 degrees Celsius. I'm putting over the silicone mat and the display, and also it has vacuum, so the vacuum holds the display in place. And now I can use my wire to go between the glass and the screen. So I'm just starting off at one corner and going slowly from one end to the other end of the phone. You can use also the method where you separate the glass from the screen with playing cards or business cards. I shown that in my Lumia 1020 video. The procedure is same. It's only a different model of the phone. So if you don't have this kind of machine, and most of the people don't, you can watch that video and you can see how I did it there. So basically you could do it here as well, but I found this much easier and much less hassle to do it this way. So as you can see, the optic glue has now turned white, and the glass still needs to be separated from the display on the bottom. It is still connected by a small piece. Now I'm using some protective foil from the old phone to separate it, and as you can see, the capacitive buttons are still connected to the glass and to the display. So I will have to disconnect them from my display and then deattach them from the glass. So I'm disconnecting this connector on the back. It is covered with some tape as well, so tape needs to be lifted up. And be careful with these force insertion connectors because they are very fragile and you do not want your connector to be broken, as it is pretty much impossible to replace it. Just gently lift up this black part and the connector should slide out with... Okay, so it's quite glued on the bottom, so and you can see it came out fairly easy. So now we still have those capacitive buttons on the glass, so I'm using the heat from the heat plate again to soften the adhesive and this thin metal tool to get in between and separate. And the capacitive buttons are off. The next thing to do is I place the display again in the frame to be much easier for me to hold it, as I remove the old optic adhesive, and it's much easier this way for me because it's much smaller risk of breaking the display. And I'm just peeling the old adhesive down slowly, no rushing because I don't want to break the display at this point. It goes off fairly easy. When it is in these big chunks, it's quite easy to be removed. You can also add some alcohol to the adhesive to soften it a bit more, but in this case I did not use that. Now I'm quickly testing it again to see if it still works, if it is surviving all of these torture I'm giving to it. So yeah, it still works. The touchscreen and the display works perfectly. And again, back to the frame. This time I'm using some alcohol in combination with microfiber cloth, and this removes the tiny bits of the glue and dust and everything. So I need perfectly clean display for the new glue and the new glass. You can press it you can press it quite strong without fear of breaking, but still you should not be exceeding some force because it is quite fragile, like the shell of an egg, and once the display cracks, the repair is over, and over in the bad way. Now I'm using double-sided tape to tape the capacitive buttons to the bottom of the display, because I don't want the buttons lifting up while I'm laying the new glass. It will be much easier this way for me. So first thing to do is to put it into the connector, and I want it all the way in, and close the connector down. I'm kind of having a hard time placing it in the connector. So yeah, when the white line gets in, you just fold the capacitive buttons over and they are glued to the bottom of the display. The next thing is to use double-sided tape all over the frame, because we are going to use our frame as mold. So we're basically going to glue the display to the frame and then put optic adhesive and glass over it. So we will use the frame as a mold for adjusting properly and lining up the glass with the display, so everything is perfectly lined up. I'm also cutting up the adhesive where the hole for the connector is, and I'm also touching the double-sided adhesive with my fingers to make it a bit weaker, so I don't have problem when removing and separating it again to clean the excess glue. So now I'm placing the display in, and I will also put some double-sided tape on the edges so I get some clearance between the glass and the screen. And also the glue pouring out will be minimal. What I forgot to say is you want to remove all of the components from the frame, as the glue gets literally everywhere, so it's really hard to clean it off. If it gets inside the microphones will stop working, the cameras, everything. So you need just the frame and just the display. And now when I have everything prepared and clean, I'm laying the optic glue in exactly this formation, because it makes much easy placing the new glass over without any bubbles, and the bubbles are something we do not want. It looks ugly and it's distracting. And yeah, so peeling the protective foil from the glass and checking once again, no dust specks, no air bubbles in the new glue. So the idea is to first lay one side and hold the other one with a thin tool, and basically you want to go slowly. As you can see, no bubbles are forming when you go from one side to the other. So just take your time, go slowly. You can gently press the glass on the bottom so the glue and the glass make contact, and just slowly go from the top to the bottom. Don't rush it. If you make a mistake here and if you just drop the glass, you will have millions of bubbles and it will be really annoying to clean everything up and do it over. So take your time and make a first attempt successful. So once I'm at the top, I can press it all in, and as you can see, no bubbles are forming. The excess glue goes out on the edges, and everything worked great till this point. So I took my medical gloves because the glue is really sticky and hard to wash off from your hands. And while I'm squeezing the glass and the display, I'm trying to wipe the excess glue off, because it will be much easier later to clean it off. So after curing the LCD and everything in the UV lamp, under the UV lamp, I separated the screen and the frame again. Now this time the screen is whole, and I'm cleaning the excess glue and these double-sided tape that I used to hold the screen in center. It will take a lot of time to clean, and a lot of paper towels in combination with alcohol, because you do not want the glue to get into the motherboard and everything. So I'm cleaning the connector as well. The back of the display, as you can see, is also all covered in the UV glue. After cleaning the backside of the display, you also want to put display under the UV light on the back side, so the all glue gets cured, so no glue in the liquid state will be put together in the phone. Now I'm cleaning the front of the glass, of the new glass. So you also want to make sure that the front camera hole is very clean, that it does not have any smudges or the glue residue. Also, now I'm using, when the majority of the glue is cleaned off, I'm using this clean microfiber cloth with alcohol. It will soak any glue that has left. Yeah, I'm making sure that the camera and the front proximity sensor are very clean. Now I'm placing the Kapton tape over the display driver components, because the phone frame is metallic and I don't want something shorting on the display side. So I'm just placing some insulation Kapton tape. You can put on the electrical tape or anything, just so that the capacitors on the display don't get connected or shorted with the phone frame. Now I'm placing the universal B7000 glue on the frame, so I'm putting it in the places where the original adhesive was. That's on the edges, all around the edges, so I'm not putting too much, not putting too little, and I'm very careful not to put any glue too much where the camera holes and the microphone hole is, because the glue can seep into those when the new LCD is pressed in. So be very careful. This glue takes a lot of time to cure, so you do not have to rush. And also it can be easily removed if you need to rework something. That's why I love this universal glue. Now I'm placing the speaker grill on the display itself with a little bit of the glue, and I'm fitting the connector and the flat cable through the hole on the frame and placing everything together really slowly and gently, so no sudden presses or hard presses, because we do not want to break anything if it's not perfectly aligned. And when I make sure that everything is perfectly fit, I will put some clamps to hold the display and the frame together. So make sure that you place them really gently and do not place over some sensitive flat cables or something like that, because you do not want to damage anything with them. And you leave them like this for a few hours while the glue cures. Now when the glue is cured, again we are taking the alcohol and microfiber cloth and cleaning the edges and the display, removing the excess glue that came out. The removal of this glue is really easy with the alcohol, so it's nothing like the super glue, it's more like a chewing gum, and that's why I love this glue. Making sure all the edges are flush with the frame and everything is perfectly fit. Also cleaning some small residue of glue, and it goes pretty easy. Now it's time to assemble the phone back again, so putting the SIM tray back in the phone, and I'm putting the bottom microphone flat cable in, but this is not a good time for that, so I will be removing it back out. The next thing to put back together is the top microphone charging connector and the 3.5mm jack, all in one flat cable. So gently place the microphone in its place right above the front camera. Everything needs to fit in perfectly. You should not be using too much force to force the parts back into their place. If something does not want to get in, take it out, try again, try a few times, maybe you're doing something wrong. So again, this metal part that holds everything together, but first we need to place the front camera, and front camera flat cables should be facing to the left, and just right now is the right time to put this metal thing that holds everything together. And now we can place the motherboard back to the frame, and we just need to be careful that all of the connectors are not in the way. So remove, adjust the connectors so that motherboard can slide in, and you can also start connecting connectors to the motherboard. Now I'm placing the top right antenna on the board, and this pigtail connector also needs to be connected. Now this is just a plastic part that was covering the antenna cable. Now I just saw that I forgot to place in the power button, so I'm lifting the board up on one place. Also I disconnected the display connector, So I'm sliding the power button in, and when it came to its place, I'm putting the board back on its place, and display connector connects in. Also, now it's a good time to put the battery back to its place. You can connect it, you can connect the power button, and now it's a good time to place the bottom microphone flat cable, because the flat cable goes over the battery. And also connecting this antenna wire, because on the bottom we have some antenna connectors. And connecting it to the board. Also making sure everything is in place. So this top right antenna just fell out, and I'm placing it back to its place. Now it's a good time to slide the bottom speaker in the frame. And now I have to disconnect the battery again and put this metal shield that holds all connectors secure. And I'm tightening the 3 screws that hold this metal plate. This is a T6 screws, those are the bigger ones. And we have 4 smaller ones in all 4 corners. So at this point all of the connectors should be in their place. Now again I'm placing this top antenna that somehow always falls out, but when I screw it in with this screw, it will stay in its place. Okay, just checking the battery connector and connecting it. And at last, top left screw goes in to secure the top left antenna and the motherboard to the frame. And we need to put the back cover again. So it's a good way to start off by sliding the bottom part first in, and then working all around and making sure all the plastic tabs are fully connected with the frame. And this is it. We have replaced the glass on the Lumia 925. If this video helped you, please show support and like this video, and you can also subscribe to this channel, as more videos like this will be coming. Also, clean off display one last time from the fingers and all of the glue. You can pour the alcohol directly on the display, but I would recommend doing it on the microfiber cloth first and then cleaning the display. So this is it. I hoped I could help somebody. This is really a long procedure. Even though this is a 30-minute video, it took me about 2 hours to do everything. And yeah, this is it.